Pluff Mud.
Pluff Mud.
That is a term, a South Carolina term.
Okay.
For a mixture of water and dirt. Inspired by the adventures of our nurses, therapists, and techs, A Beer with Atlas is the only healthcare traveling, craft beer drinking podcast. Each week, we'll open a few beers, talk about the brewery and the style of beer, and then dive into some research curated specifically for each episode. In the end, we hope each one sounds like a conversation you'd have with your friends while enjoying a few cold ones.
Welcome to another episode of A Beer with Atlas. I'm Rich.
And I'm Brian.
And as always, producer Dolan on the controllers over there.
Yeah, he's on the knobs.
I'm here.
There we go.
Turning dials. And
I told Dolan I would introduce him this time just because I've been listening to other podcasts, and the producers have that personality, right? And they pipe in every once in a while like
and
he
he's
does.
got personality,
Absolutely,
let me tell you.
yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of their punching bag, but it's a personality, I guess.
It's all right.
He's our punching bag sometimes, too.
He
right?
punches back
That's fine.
when he has to.
Totally fine.
He can edit us out like right there. He was
There
just
we-
like, "Bloop."
Turn you down.
Yep.
So producer Dolan on the controls for us today.
By the way, you can cut this out, Dolan, but that was totally just deja vu for me. Weird.
Why?
I don't know. I just had that conversation before in my head.
Wow.
Even the whole part where I was like, oh, he just turned me down. Like,
Really?
Oh, yeah. I just, ooh, cool.
I love it when that happens.
Wow. I haven't even been drinking yet, guys.
All right. Well, let's get into it then.
I don't think.
Holy City Brewing out of North Charleston, South Carolina.
That's a tongue twister.
That's a lot.
North Charleston, South Carolina.
So thanks to Mary Mitchell, our traveler there on the East Coast, the one that brought us the action figures beer.
Boy, she's turning into be the MVP
Absolutely.
lately of this show.
Sorry you work with Braden.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It's
That's the
unfortunate.
negative part, I suppose. But the
yeah.
positive is you get to share these great beers with us.
Yeah, true.
So thank you.
So she sent us a little care package, and this was one.
Holy cow, that looks exactly like what they said it looks like.
Yeah, this was one of them that she sent. It's called Pluff Mudd Porter.
Pluff Mud Porter.
Pluff, Pluff, Pluff Mud, Mud Porter. I don't even know what to think about it. I don't even know. I know I'm not necessarily a porter fan.
Do you hear that?
I do.
I hear nothing.
What?
Nothing.
There it came back.
Am I here?
I seriously thought you were just turning dials, Dolan.
Oh no!
Nope.
Yeah, there we go.
No, I wasn't turning anything.
There we go. So I'm not necessarily a porter fan. I don't know what a porter is. Maybe.
I've had, I started out kind of with some porters, right? That's a gateway into a stout for me.
Okay.
I was going to say, isn't it just a wannabe stout?
That's, it has its own unique mouthfeels. It's a little bit thinner than a stout. The alcohol content is lower, but it's a good jumping off point to get into a stout. It's kind of a little bit, it's like one step past a brown,
Okay.
and then we're getting to a porter. It gets a little darker, a little roastier, a little maltier. Color should be darker.
Where does a dunkel fall on this food chain?
Well, it's a different style of beer. The malt is different, but it's
a darker, right?
It's a darker beer, yeah. Okay. It's just a different. It won't taste as malty or roasty as this will. The color is the closest thing that has in common, but the flavor is different. So
I had a delicious dunkel in Bavaria in Epcot when we went a couple of weeks back.
Nice.
It was delicious. It was very Bavarian.
Very Bavarian, just like the pretzel. Did you have a pretzel?
I did, with some delicious stone ground mustard.
Oh boy, you were in heaven
It was
with that
awesome.
mustard.
Awesome. All right, let's try this Pluff Mud Porter. Some things never change.
Yeah. Some Santa Claus guys just walked through the door. Did you see that? Mm-hmm. I was looking at the beer. I was smelling it. And they looked at me and they did like one of the classic double takes.
Right? Hey.
Almost was a spit take if that guy would have been drinking.
What time is it? Are they drinking at work?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I'm not yet. Let me try it.
Okay, so my first take is this is not what I thought it was going to taste like.
That's good. It tastes chocolatey to me.
Mm-hmm.
But light, very light.
Almost a carbonated chocolate,
Kind of.
maybe?
It's just thin.
Yeah.
You know, when you see that color, you expect it to be a little bit thick.
I thought it was going to be way more powerful than what it tastes like.
Well, I saw in their description, it was like, you know, this is good for this time of year, but it's light and refreshing, so you can drink it all year round.
Yep.
Because it gets pretty hot there, and it stays pretty warm all year round. It's not like, you know, it's not like here.
Sure.
Where we got negative temperatures, so.
I wonder if...
It's almost like a regional style porter, because it's very, very thin.
Is it maybe my perception of porters has always maybe been close to that stout, like they're just like their brother and sister, maybe, or
It could be.
and you know, you see like the porter is the pictures or whatever is the guy with the beard and the big mug, and you know, it's like log cabin and
Sure.
Right,
That could be it. A lot of it is just the color. You know, people are always like, "Oh, I don't drink dark beer." You know, that's what a lot of people say
Sure.
before they drink dark beer, or before they've had a good one. It's like, "Oh, I don't drink. That's too strong." I'm like, well, actually, it's less strong than some of the beers you're used to drinking.
This is 5.5% alcohol.
Yeah.
It's not heavy at all.
It's like a pilsner.
Unfortunately, is that the Guinnessification of beer of maybe, I don't want to say beer culture, but maybe like amateur beer culture? Guinnessification. I just made up a word there.
Yeah, you did. I would not want to spell it.
No.
It could be. I just think it's just human nature, really, to be like scared of things you don't understand, right? And this is something like you've told yourself already. Most times, people drink these kind of beers if they haven't had them before. Like, oh, I'm not going to like this.
I'm not going to like this.
It's going to be too strong. That's the main conception. People think it's going to be strong because it's dark.
And I've been guilty of that. Dolan's been guilty of that too, I think, haven't you? Yeah.
I think everybody does, especially once you're just kind of starting to get into this game.
Yeah.
You know, and then you've got to try different, and like this is totally different porter than what you would get out of like Colorado
No.
or like
Yes.
Founders or something.
I have a question. What is it like a stout? Do you want it to warm up a little bit?
Yeah, you can. I mean, it's gonna change a little bit as far as flavors and stuff go. I prefer mine colder, but I don't know. I'm not one of those guys that really likes a room temperature stout anyway. So you can. I mean, mine's going to just because I have to talk so much today, but it's not going to hurt it. It will change the flavor a little bit. Yeah.
I'll do my talking first here, just to
sure.
give you a little drinking.
I'll wet my whistle.
There you go. So Holy City Brewing, 4155 Dorchester Road. I don't think they say it there, probably.
Probably not like that.
No. Charleston, South Carolina. Open Sunday through Thursday, 11 to 8. Friday and Saturday, 11 to 9. This is super interesting. You know I love these stories. I love these stories.
Yeah.
How these dudes like get to where they are right now, right? To this point in time. Holy City Brewing was born out of a bicycle shop garage.
That's pretty cool.
So the one dude worked on bicycles.
Okay.
Right? Joe Carl and Sean Nemitz were business partners in Charleston running a rickshaw business. I'm not making this up.
Rickshaw business.
They were running a rickshaw business. Right. So
that's probably fairly unique to come together for a brewery.
Right. So during these slower winter months, obviously you're not going to run a whole lot of rickshaws, during the winter months. They would homebrew in the back of this bike shop. And they built their first homebrew system out of old bicycle parts.
What?
Yes.
Wow.
Out of old bicycle parts.
Huh.
Reminds me of the Sierra Nevada guy. What's his name? I can't think of his name. Anyway, buying old milk jugs and milk and making kegs out of milk jugs and anything you can buy on the cheap, and then welding and going to school at night to learn refrigeration because he doesn't want to pay some dude to fix his cooler. He wants to fix it himself.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
That type of thing. So they knew Mac Minado. Sorry, Mac.
Sorry, Mac.
We'll go with Mac. They met Mac while he was working in the biodiesel industry, which is interesting. Yep. He decided to come home to Charleston, invested in a 4,000 square foot space for his biodiesel business. So he was gonna work that business there.
Okay.
I'll be honest, biodiesel. I wouldn't have the first clue as to why you would need 4,000 square feet. Anyway, thought he needed 4,000 square feet. Thanks to the government and some tax credits that never panned out, he was stuck with a building and no business.
Oh.
Yeah. So he told his story over some beers to Joel and Sean, probably some homebrew, I'm guessing, from the bicycle beer contraption. Yeah, and they thought, well, maybe we should do something here. Then they met a guy named Chris Brown. He was a food and beverage guy that had attended brewing school, worked in Colorado at a brewery for a while, came back, worked in Atlanta at a brewery for a while. The four of them was decided, let's give up our day jobs and brew full time. And so in July of 2011, they opened Holy City Brewing. By 2012, they had won their first Great American Beer Festival medal.
So 1 year in?
1 year in.
Wow.
Yeah. And I couldn't find which beer it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, they had won
Probably one of their first flagship beers, I would guess,
Well, interesting too, because if in some of my research, this Pluff Mudd Porter is one of the first that shows up.
Yeah.
So maybe this is one of their flagship beers. Maybe this is
Yeah,
one.
it definitely is one of their flagships. I saw that when I was perusing a little bit. So,
and this could just be maybe a South Carolina thing. I don't know. And maybe I'm more used to maybe Midwest, Nebraska, Colorado, Kansas. The tap room doesn't allow dogs, which I think dogs and breweries go hand in hand.
Maybe it's a health code legal sort of situation.
In the state? Yeah.
Yeah, that'd probably be my guess.
I'm going to attribute it to that.
Because who doesn't like dogs?
Right. And especially when you're drinking beers.
Even cat people seem to secretly like dogs.
Yeah.
I think.
Are you more of a dog or a cat person?
Well, that's a great question. Probably a cat person.
You're wrong.
You think I'm a dog person? I don't know. I like the idea of a sassy cat, which is one I have at my house.
Okay.
Cats don't give no F's, man.
That's true.
They're doing whatever, unless they need something from you.
Yep.
They act like after 15 years, they don't even know who you are. And I kind of like that independence. Dogs, dumb for the most part, cute.
Sure.
But boy, they're not as smart as a cat. There's pluses and minuses, I suppose.
All right. Dolan's a dog guy.
Dog all the
Yeah.
way. I've tried to own cats, and they just don't like me.
You can't own a cat. They own you. That's the first problem you ran into. You try to tell it what to do like it's a kid.
True.
They won't listen.
So since their inception there in 2011, they've expanded to 2 other locations. One is just a brewery-only location. They're not open to the public right now. So maybe the original 4,000 square feet where they started when Mac had bought that building or whatever. They're still their location. They got another location where they just brew, and then not too long ago, in fact, I think it was earlier this year, they opened a joint collaboration called Baker and Brewer with EVO Pizzeria and and Craft Bakery, located at 94 Stewart Street in Charleston. Right?
That's the one I'd be at.
Beer, pizza,
And maybe like a scone or something.
Yep.
Muffin. There's a
Speaking of
nice
dogs,
golden just walked through the door. Yeah. We're having quite the visitor list today with Santa's helpers and a golden retriever.
Well, 'tis the season, so
it is.
I guess
it was.
I can't wait to hear where we're going with this.
Well, you didn't mention this, so I'll start.
Okay.
Pluff Mud.
Pluff Mud.
That is a term, a South Carolina term.
Okay.
For a mixture of water and dirt. It's indigenous to that area. It's really full of minerals.
Okay.
And it's like just decomped vegetation from the water that gets to the ground. It's almost like a marsh, I guess, basically would be the best way to put it.
Okay.
This area of South Carolina where this brewery is from.
Okay.
And that's the term. So if you think of mud and water, that's coming out of this can, fellas.
When you pour it.
That's the term. That's why it's called that. That's why that guy's standing in that knee-deep stuff.
Ah.
That's Pluff Mud.
Okay.
It helps them agriculturally.
I would think it'd be rather nutrient-rich, probably.
Yes. So I wanted to find out a little bit more about that and just the area of the state. One of the terms I came across was Lowcountry.
Okay.
And I know that term from food.
Okay.
Because it's a style of food from South Carolina. And
Okay.
I've seen it before, and it's something that I'm into, so I did a little research on that as well. Let's see. What was it? I had a couple other brewery things specific that you didn't hit that I did write down. Let's see here. Oh, the Pluff Mud.
Mm-hmm.
They said that it has an odor, a smell, and that locals like it. And if you're a tourist, you think it stinks.
Okay.
So maybe it's just because you're not used to that smell. I don't know if that's similar to like, livestock, like if you're from the farm where the packing house is or whatever, like, that smell and other people don't, and you're just like, yeah. I'm used to it. It doesn't bother me. There's a paper mill down in Arkansas, like maybe by Fort Smith, maybe.
Okay.
And it stinks. That whole town. If the wind is right and you're driving through there, it's like, oh my God, how do people live here? And they do.
Well, that's like when I went to my first Green Bay game, we would drive through it's like Neenah, Menasha, that area of Wisconsin, and there's paper mills in both of those towns, and it just stinks so bad. But people around there are just like, they kind of almost embrace it.
They're used
That's
to
the
it.
same thing with this Pluff Mud. That's the thing I could equate it to, was like paper mill smell, I guess. Around the time the brewery was open, they either passed a new law or repealed an old law, which allowed for alcohol ABVs to be stronger.
Oh.
So
they were a 3.2.
something. I don't know if that was the number, but it was lower.
Okay. I only
And
say
then-
that because of that. That was Kansas. That means
Right.
that's the life I lived early.
Sure, and that's still the same, I think, in like Utah and some other places we've talked about on this show. But this was like in 2011, 2010, 2011, and now so then breweries could start brewing stronger beers.
Gotcha.
So that was probably one of the instigators for these guys to open up when they did, because otherwise they were capped at what they could produce and sell.
Yep.
And that's not fun when you're a home brewer. You want to go crazy.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you can still do that as a home brewer, but you're not selling. You know what I mean?
Right.
So as a business, that's great. I looked on their website. They had like 14 pages of beers.
Yeah.
And some of them were, they're not making them anymore, but that's just kind of cool to see how many different ones they've had over the years, that they're one of those breweries that's still trying new things.
Yep.
It's not, the same 10 beers on all the time every time you go.
They had some fun names. So I clicked through that a little bit just
Yeah.
to see. And I got to maybe page 6 or 7, then I stopped. But
I went 14 to 10 just to see what was the old stuff was. So.
they had one called Smoke Break. I don't know what that is, but
That's probably like a smoked porter or something like that.
Yeah.
Cool. So that was some of that stuff I did. They do a bourbon barrel version of this once a year,
Oh,
and that'd probably be my jam.
that'd be interesting.
Probably pump the ABV up to, I would say, around 6.5 or so is my guess.
Okay.
So Lowcountry, we're going to start with that. That's where Charleston County lies in the state, and that's where this guys are from. It is a geographic and also a cultural region. So the way the state is set up, there are sand hills, not unlike ours,
Like Western Nebraska.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they were formed between 75,000 to 6,000 years ago, and the wind just blew in basically ocean sand, right, or beach sand,
Sure.
and put it all across the state, South Carolina, and that's like the divider line, but it's at an angle. So if you're north of that, then you're in the up country or the high country.
Okay.
And if you're below that, you're in the low country.
Okay.
And that area is marshy, a lot of water, and it's, I don't know, that part of the state's been around with people since like the late 1600s.
Okay.
A lot of slave labor was used to grow rice. That's their main thing there. And then also indigo, like dye. That's a natural dye that people would have had and traded all the way across the United States.
Sure.
That's from that area too. So those were two of the big money makers, and the people that own those areas, those plantations and those farms, had a lot of money. So it's like an old money place in the United States.
Makes sense.
And that's kind of why Charleston has that, what am I trying to say?
Reputation.
Reputation, not
Ah.
representation. That's a lawyer
I thought
thing.
you were going to go with like, reparations.
Reparations, that probably should be there too, but that's a
Probably.
different R word. Reputation.
Okay.
It has an old money, expensive feel in Charleston is what I've heard. I've never been there. Have you?
No.
Nope.
Your band's never taken you down there, maybe?
No.
Travels?
No, never.
I've been to Charleston's restaurant in Omaha, but that's a different
really
deal.
good.
A little different.
They have good mashed potatoes.
Their rolls are good.
Charleston is now becoming, it's in the same area as Hilton Head. That's a term you've heard, or a place, a lot of people go there. It's very touristy nowadays.
Okay.
People go there for beach vacations. There's a lot of famous golf courses in that area. The weather's pretty warm all year round. They have a lot of like wetlands and protected parks and stuff like that.
Oh.
And bike riding and cycling is big,
Okay.
which is probably why those guys were doing their thing there.
The cycle shop, yeah.
It is. Let's see. What else was I going to say about it? That is where Stephen Colbert's from, Charleston, South Carolina.
Oh.
And that's where the guy. What am I gonna? Can I think of his name? Danny McBride.
From from that 70s show?
No, Danny McBride from like the Gemstones and the baseball show on HBO. Why am I blanking on it?
Oh, it's Eastbound and Down.
Yeah, Flama
I know.
Blanca.
Yeah,
That
I know what
guy
you're talking
is
about.
from there.
Okay.
So a lot of the shows he does for HBO, he writes and shoots them there.
Oh.
Because he doesn't like LA. So that's becoming now a very popular place to shoot TV and movie.
Okay.
So and also I think Bill Murray lives in Charleston. I'm pretty sure, pretty positive about that.
Nice.
So there's a lot of celebrities hanging out there, and that just makes it be a place that people want to go. So tourism is a big thing there. There also is something called low country architecture, and it's basically a style of house because it's hot there, humid all the time, or especially in the summertime. So the houses tended to be big and wide. So the roof is not so much peaked as it's more of like a slope to keep the heat from being in one central area.
Yep.
It kind of disperses it throughout. And those houses were built up on stilts off the ground to get off the ground, to get some breeze in there. And then there's usually it's almost like a shotgun style house from like New Orleans, which is just a straight rectangle. It's like that with some things on the side. So there's a breezeway, they call it. So you open the front door and the back door, it's a straight shot.
Wow.
And then you just get air through your entire house. They also have big covered porches because that's where people would sleep a lot of times in the summer or just hang out in general because it was so hot. To be in the house.
Yeah.
And they have really like almost oversized windows is kind of the design of these houses just to get more air.
Interesting. Or you could just have air conditioning.
Now,
we're talking
1780, not so much. Sit in some ice, maybe.
Gotcha.
What was the other thing? I talked about that. Golf, tennis. Millions of people end up in Charleston every year. The cuisine, that's the thing. That was a term I knew about. So, low country. It's like the cousin of Cajun food.
Okay.
Similar because the people in the region that settled it are similar.
Okay.
Backgrounds, mix of Native American, slave, like French. I think it was... Yeah, a lot of French, definitely in New Orleans, and they mixed all those cultures together and the foods that came with it, and made this new thing. Low country is like a step down from Cajun as far as spice, so it's like all the things you like about Cajun food, just not as spicy, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So they do like crawfish boil, or they call it frogmore stew, which is a shrimp. It's basically a shrimp boil.
Frogmore.
That's, I think, the area or the town or wherever this was credited from.
Okay.
But they do a lot of crabs and shrimp in this area.
Okay.
And mussels and that sort of thing. Not so much crawfish like you get in Louisiana, but those are pretty much in everything. Any dish is pretty much going to have some sort of shellfish in it. Unlike Louisiana's food, it's usually one. They usually just dedicate it one. So you're having crab soup, or you're having shrimp and grits. Like that's how they do it, versus New Orleans is like, let's take 5 things and throw it in the
Dump
pot.
them all in there.
Right.
I'll eat any of those, quite honestly.
I would too. I wrote down a list of some of the ones that either sound good or I've had.
Okay.
This one's called cooter soup,
Oh.
and that's turtle soup.
Oh.
So I hear turtle is supposed to be really good.
It is very good.
I've never had it. You've had it?
I've had it in Louisiana, so I had a Cajun version, but
I've never had it before.
yeah, it's pretty good. And my grandpa used to make it every once in a while on the farm. If we would go fishing in the pond, and you'd catch a big snapping turtle,
Yeah.
you just bash that thing over the head, and we got turtle soup.
Turtle soup.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
They make sweet potato and crab soup. That's pretty popular down there.
Gross. I don't like sweet potatoes.
Yuck.
I'm not a fan either.
Oh, hey. We just bonded over the hate of sweet potatoes.
Yes.
Sweet potato, get out of here. Give me a Yukon Gold or a russet potato. Get out of here with this
Right.
sweet potato.
Yeah.
Or
What
don't
are you
even-
trying to be?
Don't try to call it a yam. I'm
that's
on to you.
dumb.
Yeah.
Get that out of
Oh,
here
but
with
it tastes
the
like
marshmallow.
pumpkin pie. Eat pumpkin pie. dude.
Yeah, no. And when some place is trying to give you like a sweet potato fry,
No.
slap them on the floor.
yeah.
Get these out of here.
Get them out of here.
Sick.
No.
Anyway,
a
shrimp
lot of-
and grits.
There's
That's
a lot
a
of
big
hate.
thing.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of hate
Well,
for sweet potatoes.
we hate
right
them.
there. That's true. Okay.
We don't like them. This ain't a sweet potato love show. This is a beer show. Shrimp and grits.
Yes.
So grits are a huge staple down there.
Love them.
Hominy is a style of grain or whatever they make.
It's just a giant corn.
Yeah, it's just like corn, right?
Yep. So that's something that grows down there pretty well, and that's why they've had grits all the time.
Isn't it more white? It's more white.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then what was the other thing I wrote down? Oh, this is something that you would only have down there. It's called Charleston red rice, and it's West African influence. So as the slaves brought this over, basically it's cooking rice with tomatoes, smashing up tomatoes and throwing them in, and then adding bacon. I mean, that sounds pretty good to me.
Oh, yeah.
And then this other thing that they called Hoppin' John. It's a side dish. So if you went to like a barbecue or a picnic down there, you might get a plate full of Hoppin' John.
Hoppin' John.
So I had to look that up because I was like, well, that's weird.
Yeah.
And it's basically beans like you'd get.
Like
and
red beans?
Kidney bean.
like that sort of thing. And
Okay.
then peas and rice all mixed together.
Okay.
And then it usually has some bacon or like pork in it.
Yeah.
And then you eat that on New Year's Eve. That's a big New Year's Eve food.
Okay.
And then the next day you call the leftovers. It was something like Skinny Sally or something. It was like another name. And that's to show like, okay, we might have been bare bones last year.
Yeah.
But from now on, we're going to be, have a great year. So we're going to get rid of the old year, use up all the stuff so we can start fresh this year.
Okay.
And so that's like a traditional, you eat the leftovers on New Year's Day to start your year on the upswing, basically.
All right. Okay.
So I was, something. Jenny or Sally wasn't the name. I can't remember.
Make some Hoppin' John. Sounds good.
Hoppin' John, mostly rice. So a lot of rice and that sort of stuff down there.
That's fine with me.
So that's what I know about that. Low country.
Interesting.
Made me hungry.
Yeah.
I'd take some shrimp and grits right now. Right now.
If it had some cheese on it, I like the cheesy grits.
I'd like to, I've never, grits are, I never finish it. How about that? I try it because I think I'm going to like it, and then I don't really like it. Then I eat another bite just to solidify the thought of not liking it. And then I'm about good right there.
Grits are the only food that I'll eat that goes against I have like a food code.
Sure.
Okay.
Who doesn't?
My food code is you can't be everything to everybody, right? This is why I don't like cottage cheese.
Oh, yeah, that's gross.
Gross. Never mind that it's just super curdled weirdness. But there are some people that put salt and pepper on it.
Sure.
There are some people that eat it with fruit.
Yeah.
There are some people that eat it with like chicken or whatever. No. You're either sweet or you're not, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but grits are the kind you can have it for breakfast with some fruit, or then you can put some butter in it and you have it,
yeah.
right? Or you put it with shrimp or whatever. It breaks my food code.
Wow.
But I'm okay with that because it's delicious.
So how did you try it for the first time?
I was at a conference in Florida. Oh gosh, man, I can't even tell you how long ago it was, but it was kind of early, maybe late 90s, early 2000s, somewhere in there. And it was with Ameritrade, when I was with Ameritrade. And for whatever reason, it was on the breakfast buffet, and I was feeling adventurous that morning. And so
You woke up on the right side of the bread
I
and you go, you know
guess.
what? Grits.
I'm gonna try some grits today. And
Little spoonful.
Oh, it was just a little bit.
Yeah.
But they were like the cheesy buttery grits, and oh god, they were so good. Good.
Only grits I've really ever liked were the ones I made at home.
Do you make the instant ones, or whatever?
No, it was like with a recipe, and we made shrimp and grits and added some cheese in it and some Cajun stuff. It was pretty good.
We should go to the Arcadia Grill for lunch today and go get some shrimp and grits.
Boy, there you go.
Do that.
I love that place.
That's off topic, but in Sunday's paper there was a big story in the living section about all the Cajun restaurants in town because of the Jazz closure.
Yeah.
Which
Wait,
was
what?
Yeah, Jazz closed
What?
downtown.
When did this happen?
Saturday. I don't know.
I wonder what happened to that guy. So you know the story about that guy?
Jazz.
Yeah.
All I know was like some kind of a chainish restaurant.
This was the dude. He came up from Katrina. He was one of the that was displaced from Katrina and came here and opened Jazz.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Legit. It was good.
Yeah, it was good. It was the only place I used to go there on Mondays. It was Mud Bug Mondays. You get 2 pounds of crawfish and a beer. What a deal.
That's a deal.
It's because he had vanilla porter on tap. Or the vanilla bean.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they had
Gross.
they had a lot of Abita beers there.
Oh, that didn't surprise me.
Yeah,
at
they
all.
did. Yeah.
I remember having those.
New Orleans, Louisiana.
It was a fun spot. I kind of liked it down there.
I liked it a lot. The building next to it is a music venue. And so every time we played a show there, we'd go to the jazz right before.
Get loaded up.
Get loaded
red
up
beans
on
and rice. And
Cajun food, and then go pay for it on stage, and
make others pay for it after
look
they
like
paid.
we're sweating because we're playing really hard,
Oh,
but it's
yeah.
really just the
That
Cajun.
andouille sausage was hot.
Here's what it's natural progression, right? We were talking about foods there in Charleston, right? Versus, in being like a cousin to Louisiana, like crawfish, Cajun cuisine or whatever. I couldn't find anything on this. How the heck did these guys run? How did they get into a rickshaw business in the first place? Like
Golly. Are you, can you read my notes?
No, I'm not looking
That's
at your
what we're
notes at all.
doing. I have rickshaw.
No, you don't.
I have rickshaw history.
I
This
want to.
happens every week.
This is great.
Clearly, we're this many episodes in, and
Well, here's why. Here's the answer.
okay,
Tourism.
okay.
The answer is tourism, because the only place you see them are in high tourist areas. We have them down in the old market. There's a couple I've seen, or like College World Series time, you'll see
Yes.
them. Anytime there's an influx of tourists,
Yep.
you will see them out there.
Okay.
Whether it's an actual rickshaw, mostly what we see now are pedicabs.
The bikes,
So a guy biking and pulling two people.
What's
or
that
one.
called? What is
pedicab?
petty.
PADI. PEDI, like petty.
Oh, like pedaling.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's where we're going. That's the
Okay.
second half of my research.
That's freaking awesome.
All right, rickshaw. Boom. This also makes me think of, I think it was, oh boy, the sketch comedy show that was from Canada, Kids in the Hall.
Oh yeah.
I think it might have been a Kids in the Hall sketch. I don't remember why.
Okay.
But these people were supposed to go someplace, and they had to be there on time. And one of the guys didn't get there, but like, I don't know, years late. and it was the punchline of the sketch was like, it was because he took a rickshaw to get there, and it took him so long. And then the driver said, "Don't blame rickshaw driver. He just, he went as fast as he could." So that's stuck in my head for 30 years. It's so dumb, but that's my sense of humor.
See, mine goes back to Seinfeld. To Kramer and Newman getting the rickshaw and trying to get the homeless people to pull the rickshaws or whatever. And then the one homeless guy runs off with it, and then they find him later in Battery Park. And,
Yep.
Yeah. See, I even know the park where they found him. It's
See,
ridiculous.
the rickshaws. Oh, they're still around very popular in New York City, but they're expensive. And they're in Seattle quite a bit.
Okay.
I was doing a little bit of research, and they're in Charleston.
Huh? Okay.
And they're in Savannah, Georgia, which are all southern places. Those ones, southern, touristy, and people that go there, they're not cheap places, so they're expensive, and it's kind of like an indulgence, basically, for now. So it's like, I'm not gonna walk 3 blocks to the next brewery. I will pay this guy to pedal me there, right? That's like what they are.
Sure.
So it's like a special indulgence that you do on vacation. You're not doing that in your normal life, but on vacation you'll do things that you're like, you know what? Okay, so I'm on vacation.
$20 for a rickshaw ride. All right,
Like,
fine.
fine. Yeah, it might rain. Okay, cool.
right.
So that's kind of like why it's still around and where it is. The history of them, I'm not surprised about this when I learned some of these things. Basically, kind of consensus is they were created in Japan,
Okay.
like 1869 is the time. So that seems late to me.
It does seem late.
But the reason it was 1869 is because there was a new, I don't know if it was an emperor, feudal lord, whoever was in charge of Japan back then, new regime shows up, and they're like, hey, you know what? We used to have a law that said no wheeled vehicles. Which, okay, so why? Yeah, why? That seems strange to me.
Right.
We're going to go ahead and let you have wheeled vehicles now. And they say, okay, cool. So then they created a rickshaw, and that's the wheeled vehicle that they used.
Like a horse pulling a wagon wasn't sufficient. They needed a dude pulling a wagon.
Well, there's reasons for that.
Smaller
So
wagon.
before the rickshaw, that's how you got around. You either got around by an animal pulling you, like an ox or a cow or a horse or whatever. You're in a wagon.
Sure.
But for the most part, those are not real readily available in like big cities, right? So there's some.
Well, and I would assume that it just costs too many magic beans to get.
I think you're onto something there too, Dolan. The other thing people used before was just a wheelbarrow.
Oh.
And you'd just sit in the wheelbarrow and someone would push you.
Okay.
And that's crazy to me to think 160 60 years ago. If you wanted to go somewhere, that might be how you got there.
I called Dolan up on my...
Yep. You'd have to send a letter and be like, hey, 4 days from today, come over with the wheelbarrow. I would like to go to town.
I would like to go to town.
And that's how it goes. My kid has a nursery rhyme book, and forever, until today, I didn't know what it came from, but it was a guy in London, and he was a bachelor, and he wanted to go find a wife. So he took his wheelbarrow into town and got one and took her home. And I was like, what the hell is it in a wheelbarrow? But then the wheelbarrow broke. The wheel broke off, and she fell out, and they didn't get married.
And she broke her crown and...
Something like that.
Okay.
And I was like, why is it a wheelbarrow? Well, that's why. So they became popular in the late 1880s. They started in Japan, and then they just kind of boomed all across Europe and Asia. They made their way to Africa, Australia, and the United States, which is weird. But I guess if it's a transportation thing that you didn't have before and now you can get someplace, it's probably going to spread.
Sure.
It was universally accepted that only men could pull the cart.
Okay.
Right? So it was it's like a low-paying man's job.
Right.
That's what you're going to get.
Sure.
So they had a bunch of, I don't even know if I would call them drivers, pullers. I don't know what the term would be, but they had a bunch of strikes worldwide.
Okay.
People were like, we're not doing this anymore. We want more money. And like had organized strikes about it to not pull rich people, basically, is how it turned out to be. And usually they were crushed because there's always more poor people to hire. So
True.
They didn't really worry about that group. They got rid of them and brought in some new ones.
Yeah. Well, there were no labor unions back then.
And then it was also usually like the poorest immigrants would be the ones that would get this job. Like, we don't want your kind here unless you pull me to the bar.
Only Irish need to apply.
Something like that. Or like Singapore was a place that there was another group that they said, okay, you guys can do this, and that's it. I was kind of thinking like, okay, what would be the reason to need one or use one?
Okay.
And then I found this stat, and I was like, what? These guys, especially in Asia, they would average 20 to 30 miles a day. They would pull somebody.
Jeez.
At 8 miles an hour.
Oh.
So they're running for 30 miles a day. That's a marathon every day that they're averaging at 8 miles an hour.
Holy cow.
And that's how fast they could go. You're pulling
you're pulling somebody.
I'm like, okay, yeah, so you can go a lot farther, than you would. And you're going like distances. Rich families would have their own like stable of guys that would run and pull the rickshaw. They would like trade off. Sometimes they would take two.
Sure.
It seemed to be if you had one person, the ride was smoother than if you're two people pulling, because then you're like kind of lunging it and stuff.
Right.
And it was not as fun of a ride, or it was a little rougher. So they would just trade off. The other guy would like run behind it and then take over when the other guy got tired, and he would run the rest of the way. So it's like, that's crazy to think that was 150 years ago. That's how people would do stuff.
Yeah.
So that was the reason why. Up until World War II, they kind of were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Everybody all over the world was using these things.
Okay.
And then in World War II, they kind of got shut down. And basically it was because, it was like the people that ran the countries and the rich people were like, just looks bad. We're developing as a country. Mm-hmm. We don't need a person to pull another person. Like, that just looks bad. It's bad PR.
Yeah.
Some people said it was because the rich person, or just any person, was too close to the laborer, because they're not that far apart when you're pulling the guy. It's like within a foot, right?
Right.
And they're like, oh, he's too close to the commoner. We can't have that. That looks bad.
I thought you meant close, like, hey, Gary, how your feet doing? Oh, it kind of hurts. Well, let's take a break or whatever.
I don't think they cared about that.
They didn't care about that. Okay.
I don't think they cared about that. They did say that pulling the rickshaw, the quote I read was, it's the deadliest occupation in the East and most degrading for human beings to pursue. So if you're so down and out, you have to take a job to pull a rickshaw. That's like the worst thing you can do, at least in the Asian culture back then at that time. There were some theories. They had, of course, when we maybe know a fact or we think we know, well, then America has to chime in and say, nah, we actually did that first, y'all.
Sure.
So there's 3 different versions of where rickshaws came from, and amazingly, they all came from the United States. Here's one of them. A guy was a missionary, but he lived in like Tokyo area of Japan.
Okay.
Around the same time, maybe 2 years before.
Yep.
And his wife was invalid. She couldn't walk or whatever. So he's like, I want to take her around and show her the sights, but she can't move, I'll build this cart thing and then I'll drag her around the city and she can see stuff.
Okay.
They already made those sort of things, especially in Victorian England. So around the same time, they were like called bath chairs, and it was basically like a wheelchair that someone pulled. So if you couldn't walk, you couldn't move, you would sit in one of these, and then someone would take you around. So it's kind of the same thing, just a little bit different design.
Bath chair because it was like bigger, like a bathtub, maybe.
Well, or just I guess something like that. Another story was this blacksmith made one of these in 1846. He put together the parts. It was for a missionary trip to go like to South America, and this was to pull like gear and supplies. And then the third one, some carriage maker in 1867 in New Jersey allegedly made one, and they have it in their museum there, which is the same time, about 10 years before the one in Japan. So who knows, but all the other evidence points to Tokyo area as being the people that created it.
I'm going to go with that. I think that's,
In 1962, pedicabs showed up for the first time in the United States, and that's in Seattle at the World's Fair. So they would take you from your parking spot or whatever to the fair itself, and that's pretty much what we see nowadays.
Somebody just welded a bike frame to the
pretty much, or made it so that you could fit two people across. They also have these things that are called auto, and then there's another one called electric rickshaw. And really, it's not kind of what you're thinking. It's more of like, if you think about, India, or that's probably the best town I could think of. It's like a little scooter, like a tiny little scooter, a 3-wheeled scooter that there's a guy driving and there's two people sitting in behind. That's like an electric rickshaw, technically. Because it's smaller than a car.
I saw those in Jamaica when we were there years ago.
So places like that, they've been having those even up until the 90s. They still make those. Germany was a big producer. And anywhere that there's a lot of people in little space, you're going to see these things. So China, a lot of places in there, Middle Eastern countries, India, anything like that is going to be nowadays an auto or an electric. So either driving it, someone's driving you, or you're driving it yourself. But it's smaller than a car, but not a bicycle. Technically a rickshaw. So that's the information. That's what I got on the old rickshaw.
That's super interesting. That's just,
But the reason it's there, those guys were already into biking. It's a tourist area, a way to make money. From what I know about people that like to ride bikes, they don't care where they're riding bikes. They just want to ride bikes.
They just want to ride.
And if they can make money while they're riding the bike, even better. So that's my guess. They were just in the dead time of tourism, and that's why that brewery started up.
And that's where it came from.
Because of the rickshaw from Tokyo in 1879.
Yeah, I'm more inclined to buy that it was created over in Japan, China. Like that's the pictures you see more often. And
yeah. I mean, that's when even the name. It's a Japanese name for the thing, so it wasn't like we called it the rickshaw.
You're right. We would have come up with some other.
We just translated the Japanese term.
Pedicab.
Wheel cart.
Something like that.
Yes.
Yes.
Inverse wheelbarrow.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Fancy barrow.
All right, Untapped. This was shocking to me, and I guess I shouldn't be surprised by this because 26,000 check-ins.
Dang,
that's a ton.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
That tells me the brewery's been around a long time, and that it's one of their standard beers. Because if it was a seasonal or something, you wouldn't get those numbers.
The description here on Untapped: our second flagship beer was an effort to bring the American porter style to the Charleston market proper, while also making a beer that stays appealing as the mercury rises. We think we've succeeded in Pluff Mudd Porter. It presents and smells like a classic porter with subtle chocolate notes and a silky finish, but the medium body and tame ABV keep it refreshing at all times. Enjoys throughout the year, in or out of the marsh.
There you go. It's lighter to me than a porter.
It
like
is.
When you said porter, I was thinking darker, thicker. And this thing, I mean, it hasn't changed much as it's warmed up.
It hasn't.
But it almost looks like, now where I'm at the bottom, almost looks like tea.
Yes.
It has like a tea characteristic to it. Tastes good. There's no aftertaste, really. Sometimes that's another knock on porters is you get that roasty flavor in your mouth after you're done drinking it, and some people akin that to coffee,
Yeah.
And I don't notice that with this one.
No, I like this one a lot. Early on before we came on, I'm like, gosh, I don't know about porters. I just don't know if I'm gonna like this. I enjoyed it. I really liked it a lot.
Yeah, this is just a different style. We're not going to find something like this around here.
No. So 26,000 check-ins. What do you think the average score is?
Dolan?
3.6.
I'm going to go 3.74.
3.76.
Whoa!
That was close. One of these days you're
I
going to
was
hit
going to
it.
go over under, and I was like, I'll go under this time.
You're going to hit it on the money. So I think, quite honestly, I would. I don't know. As porters go, I enjoyed this one. This is probably a 4 for me. I think. I have no problem with it. I would order this if we were there. I would order it again.
Yeah, I would get this again.
I find myself wanting more of it. I think.
As I drink this, what I wanted in this was mint. I don't know why, but I just feel like if it finished with some mint, that would be really good.
Could be time of year too.
Could be
time.
Could be that green wall I'm staring at. I don't know.
Don't. What do you think?
I don't know. I would have ranked it probably like a 3.5.
You still can.
Yeah, I can if I get better at doing that.
I'm gonna keep on you.
Not his style though.
No.
At all.
No, it's not something. I feel like if I'm gonna go dark, I'm gonna go all the way.
That's been my theory for a long time on porters. I'm like, well, why don't I just drink a stout?
Right.
But sometimes you can't do a stout. This is 5.5. This is no worries. So I don't know. If I had this and this was available, I'd get it.
See, and I think I would take the opposite there. I wouldn't order the stout, but I would definitely order this again.
Yeah.
So that kind of, because I'm not a stout guy. I'm more. This is way better.
Don't worry. Next year I'll get you.
I almost take stouts as a challenge.
Oh.
Like you see them on the menu, and then you see the ABV.
Yeah.
You're like that one.
My time is so limited, like at the brewery or whatever, with kids and family and all that kind of stuff. So it's just I'm not. I'm going to spend my time on the beers that I like.
Here's a pro tip for you. And this is something I recently started doing. If I go to a place, I know I'm going to have 2 beers, right? Let's say I'm going to, and I might have done this at Cross Train recently.
Okay.
I know I'm going to get a stout.
Okay.
That's just I have to. It's in my DNA.
Sure.
And I'm going to have an IPA.
Okay.
I'll order both those beers at the same time because that stout can warm up. That's fine. And I actually want it to warm up a little bit because I don't want it to be 34 degrees that they pour it at.
Right.
I'll order those both, especially in a taster, if you're doing that sort of situation. Because like when you get a flight, you get them all at the same time.
Right.
Same thing with a pint. Drink some of the IPA, taste the stout, IPA, whatever you're doing. If you're on a time crunch, but you're going to have 2 beers or something like that.
Sure.
That way you can enjoy both of them at the same time, and you can notice how the stout changes over time, right?
Okay.
So that's usually what I like to do. Just get it out of the way, especially if I know I'm just going to be there and done. I'll just give them my card, tab out. I have the things I need. I can enjoy it over time and make sure I get the thing that I want to get. So that's my tip.
You don't find that crossing the streams, so to speak, is bad?
Well, sometimes I'll do a third glass, and that's water, and just water between the IPA and the stout.
Yeah.
But no, for me, I don't know, maybe it's just my palate or whatever, but I like going back and forth because then it kind of wakes you up again. You're like, oh, dang, this is really fruity or whatever. If you alternate, it seems like your brain has to keep up with you because if you're just got a pint, the first couple times you're drinking it, you're like, this is great. And by the end, you're like, oh, what was that? What did it taste like? This is a way to like refresh your palate every time.
That is a pro tip.
It's, a lot of R&D gone into that and some dollars.
Brian, we're not going anywhere for a while.
Let's have a whole fridge full of beers.
Thank you for listening to A Beer with Atlas. Special thanks to our brand team for producing the show. Each episode of A Beer with Atlas is powered by Atlas MedStaff, an industry leader in travel healthcare staffing.